Hello and welcome to session 36 of Talking Asperger's with Andrew. My name is Andrew Marsh and I was diagnosed with Asperger's when I was 51 after a lifetime of being different and not fitting in. And what I want to do today is talk to you about one of the positive traits that people who have autism and Asperger's have. And it's something that relates very strongly to me as well, and that is integrity. Integrity. I think you have to think about what that actually means, but integrity to me comes down to three things. It comes down to honesty, loyalty, and commitment. Honesty. I'm going to start with honesty first because that's a big one with me. I can lie. I am a human being. I do have the capacity to lie. It's just I always get found out. I am a hopeless liar. My wife and my previous wife just have to look at me and goes, "You're lying." Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. So in a work setting, in a work setting, it's very difficult for them to lie because it's about telling the truth. It's about being in their truth. So if the boss says, "Have you done something?" they're not going to say yes if they haven't done it. They might say, "Well, I'm in the process of doing it. I haven't finished it at the moment, and I hope to have it finished by the end of today or tomorrow." But they won't outright say yes, they finished it if they haven't. If they've started it, they've got this sort of little window of yes, I'm doing it. But there's the inability to be able to lie effectively. And I used to work in the construction industry. Now, I'm not labeling everyone I've ever met in the construction industry to be dishonest liars, because that's clearly untrue. But it's always the bit after the but that counts, isn't it? But I have met some people who are incredibly good liars. They can tell barefaced lies to your face and look at you and think, "Come on, try and call me out on it because I'm ready for you." And I've been there. I've sat in meetings when someone sitting across the table from me has absolutely barefaced lied, and I've got the information that says, "No, you're lying," and they're saying, "Come on then, call me out. I dare you." And I do, or I did. I said, "Well, actually, that's not quite my recollection," and I will couch it in those terms, and I will then go on to give an explanation of what information I have, and we'd have this debate about what was true and what was not true, and how much of it was completely true, and how much of it was judicious language, and how much of it was journalistic license, and getting all of those wonderful phrases that basically mean I'm not telling the complete truth. And I really struggled with lying. Clients would ask me a question, I'd answer them. Great, I've answered the question. Client's happy. Outside the meeting, my boss is ready to slap me around the head. "What did you just say that for?" I said, "Because that was the truth." "But you're not allowed to tell them the truth. We have to tell them the company version of the truth, which isn't necessarily your version of the truth." And we get into these scenarios where I'm thinking, hang on a minute, how deep are we digging this hole about the truth? And I struggled with it enormously because someone asked me a question, I'll tell them the truth. And I really did struggle with that. And there were many, many times where I would be called up afterwards by colleagues and they'd say, "That's just not the thing to say. Next time, don't say anything." Well, if you don't want me to say anything, then don't have me at the meeting. I'm the one who's working with this information. I'm the one who's dealing with it. You either want me at the meeting or you don't. "Yes, but we do, but just don't say anything." And I actually remember one particular occasion where there was a meeting called and I was the person who was involved in the thing that happened. I was one half of two people of the thing that happened. And there was a meeting with directors, with our directors from the parent company. And they all had this meeting and they specifically excluded me from the meeting. And they came back and they said, "Oh, we've sorted that out." I said, "Sorted what out?" "Oh, that thing that happened yesterday on site." "Oh, really? You mean the thing that I was involved in?" "Yes, we've had a meeting, we've sorted it." "What did you resolve it as?" They told me and I said, "Well, that's not what happened at all." And they look at me and they think, "Well, you just please be quiet. We've sorted this." I said, What
We want
what
it to go away.
yes, that's exactly it. We want it to go away, and can you be included in the going away part, please? And and you're thinking, what? If you're going to have a meeting about a topic that I was 50% of what happened, then at least let me go and say my 50%'s worth.
Mm,
Then you can cut me off and say, okay, Andrew, thanks for that. You can leave, which they have
mm,
done as well. I've been in a meeting, get to say my piece, and then have been told to leave while they then discuss what they're going to do about it and then what they're going to do about me. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, there were times when I would be sitting there thinking, why are you employing me? If you're not actually going to listen to what I have to say, you don't have to agree with it all. We can have a discussion about it. But if you're not going to listen to what I have to say, and I've worked on the project for the last 3 months, I've put in I've put in 400 hours or whatever it is of work on it. I've got a say in it. I'm an integral part of what's happening. If I stopped working on it and you transferred me to something else, it's going to take someone a week to fathom out where we are on it and what try and extract out of my head to take it on forward. So why exclude the person who is intimately involved with the project from the decision making and the discussion? But they did, because for various reasons, for reasons that are just the fact that I am not good at lying, I don't have very good filters. Now I have learned to have filters. I have learned from my first wife. I've learned from my current wife. I've learned from my kids. I've learned from my bosses and colleagues I work with that I have to have filters. My Asperger's doesn't generally work with filters. Someone asked me something. Yeah, I'll tell them. Oh, they don't like that. So I have learned to, at my cost, to my detriment sometimes for not doing it, I have learned to use filters. Sometimes I get it right. Sometimes I get it wrong. I'm not infallible. I'm a human being. But this having to second guess yourself before you answer them, that confuses the heck out of me. They've asked me a question. Okay, that's my answer. Oh, hang on, should I give them that answer, or should I tone it down a little bit? Should I take it down to a 6 or a 7 rather than a 10? And then I think,
So
well,
you're
what?
rehearsing your answer.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're rehearsing your answer. You're arguing with you're arguing with yourself about what you should say.
And if you want to ask them a question, you're rehearsing how you're asking that question because they've got a fragile ego or they're insecure or they're having a bad day or they feel threatened by you in some way, which is always ridiculous. um I've been uninvited from so many meetings for the same reasons, but they never ever gave me any pointers on how to fix it.
No,
They just left it to me to do it,
no,
to sort it out. I'm like, sort what out? I can't. I'm not responsible for this person's fragile ego.
exactly,
I'm
exactly.
here to do some work. Are we not all here to do that? Apparently not. Apparently there's the posturing and the politics and the
Oh
game
yes,
playing and the sucking up to the right person and all that silliness. Ugh.
yeah. If there was one thing that working in the construction industry had taught me is I am not any good at all at office politics. Give me a job to do, I'll go away and do it. If I've got questions, I'll come and ask. If I need support, I'll ask someone to help me if they're allowed to. And that's it. I'll go off and do it. And when I've got to the finishing point, I'll say, there's the finishing point. That's what I've done. You've got 2 days to review it. It's going out Friday. Let me know if you've got any comments. But that's it. That's what you've got. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the package.
Mm-hmm.
This having conversations around the water cooler and the tea break about with so and so about so and so, and have you been invited to the boss's barbecue on Sunday,
Being seen in the right places.
and the
Perception of you is this.
yes
What does that mean?
and the occasional Friday lunchtime down a certain pub that they all seem to congregate at, but no one ever told me about going to Friday lunchtime down a certain pub, and or the second Thursday of the month they would go to the pub after work. No, what were they doing? They're allowed to. I mean, they are allowed to. They are people. They have, they're allowed to. But if they're going to go and sit and talk politics about the office and what are we going to do about Andrew or this person or that person, or how can we manipulate the situation so that it's good for us and bad for them? Because
Mm.
that's what happened. I was on the blunt end of this unofficial. Ooh, is smear campaign the right word? I think possibly it might be.
Lynch mob.
Lynch mob, smear campaign of how do we make Andrew look bad?
Mm.
How do we make ourselves look better? Because then when there's promotions coming up, oh, we're in top of the tree and Andrew's sitting down in the groundwork digging holes for himself. And
Absolutely.
so all of this comes down to integrity and telling the truth, being true to what you know. And I was always a good one for saying, if I was asked a question and I didn't know the answer, I would say I didn't know the answer. And I might say, well, it could be this or this, but I won't, excuse the French, I won't do a BS answer just to make myself look important. If I
Yeah.
don't know, I'll either go away and find out, or I'll speculate that it could be A, B, or C. But if I don't know, I'll say, do you know, actually, I don't know that at the moment. Let me
And
look
that's
in.
what people with the fragile ego can't do,
Yes,
because they're worried it makes them look weak. But
yes,
what I learned was, instead of asking them a question and them not knowing the answer and then the bad stuff happens, I would say to them, do you know anyone who can answer this question? And then I'd ask the question, and then they would either say, yeah, I know the answer to that, and they'd answer it and they'd look great, or you need to speak in Andrew in such and such a department, and they still look great.
yeah,
Everyone's a winner.
yeah,
But I had to
absolutely.
work that out for myself. Nobody went, this is a great way of dealing with this. So I'm telling everyone I've ever met, if you've got someone who's got a fragile ego, try this.
Yeah, I, I, I despair at some of the things that I, I wish I had the courage back then to have handled some situations differently. I remember one particular occasion. I'd recently joined a company. It was the company I wanted to work for, and they'd given me a big project to work on. So I was in heaven. But I was working under someone who was less than completely good about certain ways of managing people.
Okay.
He struggled with things like that, and he was managing someone else on a different project as well. And my boss's desk was on my right and my colleague's desk was on my left. And there was a meeting of the two of them in front of my desk. And the meeting of minds was conflict, that he was asked to do something that he didn't have the information for. And he said, just get on and do something. Will you do something with it? He said, but I haven't got any information. What do you want me to do? I don't know. I haven't got the information. To which the classic line came out with, I don't care, just do it. At which point, boss's fountain pen went shooting across the room and went twang like a javelin in the carpet.
Oh my goodness.
Which point, boss went down, picked up his pen and went sat at his desk and started chuntering to himself. And the other guys left standing there going, what do you want me to do? What am I supposed to do?
And yet, if that was turned, the tables were turned, and someone who was a subordinate behaved like that, they'd be having a chat with HR
They'd
about
be
their behaviour.
written up straight away.
Double standards.
It would be straight into the boss's office, the director's office,
Who do you think you are?
finger
How dare you
pointing. And
behave like that?
we've just had
Yeah.
this awful situation. He's not the person we want. He's argumentative.
He's
He's
aggressive. Yeah.
obstructive. He's being deliberately obstructive. He's not a team player. Not a
Yeah.
team player. Oh, if ever I could make up plaques of all the things that I've been called, well, not a team player would be one of them. I ought to have it as one of my backgrounds. Andrew is not a team player. So that comes down to honesty. What were the other one? Loyalty. Loyalty. Oh yes, I would be loyal to my company and to my client, more so to my client,
Mm.
because my client is the one that's paying everyone. He pays the company that I work for. The company that I work for pay various people, and part of that is to pay me every month for what I do. So I am loyal to my company. I will back them up to the hilt, and with the honesty, with the truthfulness, and I will put in the extra hours, and I will put in, I really need to do 50 hours this week. Okay, well, every now and then you have to get on and do it and blah, blah, blah. But when that becomes expected every week, every month, there's several problems that drop out of that. One is you're going to end up in burnout, and the actual extra hours you're doing are not particularly productive. And three, it actually means there's a management failing. And four, you need more staff. There might be other things that drop out of that, but those are the key ones. And you can't
The
keep you.
one-way road to absenteeism and attrition.
Yeah, exactly.
Which makes the problem worse.
There was someone in the department round the corner from us in the office I worked, and she was off for 6 months. She run the department, but she was off for 6 months. When she came back, she was a shell of her former self. And we said, "Oh, don't speak to Amanda. She's got ME. She's got chronic fatigue. She's burnt out." And I'm thinking, oh no, that could be me. And it was me eventually. 15 years later, it was me. I burnt out. I absolutely crashed and burned.
I've been there too.
And I went to see my doctor, and he took one look at me and said, "You're not good for anything." And he signed me off. And that's been me for too long. But you just end up getting burnt out, and you're no good to anyone. Then you're no good to your family. You're no good to your kids. You're no good to your wife. You're a liability, and you're not helping anyone. You certainly aren't helping yourself. So all of these things that we've been talking about are some of the things that people with Asperger's have. They're very fiercely loyal. They're very honest. I say they don't have filters, and that can get them into trouble. But it shouldn't get them into trouble if they're being honest and truthful. What should happen is people should understand how you work. We all have to understand how each other works to find the right way that works for them. And as I say to my clients, you have to find the right way that works for all of the individuals in your team. And that doesn't mean one size fits all. It might fit for most of them, maybe, if you've understood how each person works. Are they a visual person? Are they a sensory person? Do they more like to go by their nature, or do they like to read lots of information rather than some people who don't like to read lots? They like bullet points and images. Have you found out how each person works? And it's then your job as the manager, the boss, the supervisor, to make everything work for everyone in their own way, so that they can all be as effective and productive as they possibly can be. So that the whole thing, and your job is to meld all that together, so that you're not forcing someone to go to work in a certain way that doesn't work for them, because that's just going to lead to, as you say, attrition, stress, burnout, can't do this, can't cope, time off work, absenteeism. That doesn't help anyone. If half your team's off because they're stressed out, then there's something wrong with the management structure somewhere. Because
and the other half of your team are probably on the way out too, because they're carrying all the workload now.
Yeah, exactly.
Or they're having to train up temps.
Yeah. Or you get like people like me who come in my later career. I was freelance, and so I would be parachuted into my client would say, "I need you for 3 months," or "I need you for 2 weeks." And you would go in, you do your 2 weeks or your 3 months, bump, you're back out again, and they in 3 months' time they think, actually we need him again, parachute him in. And that was fine, because that's how it was working for me then. I was working for some clients and I tended to work in their office effectively as an employee, but I was a contractor. But they would give me a project. So they say, "This is too much for our team at the moment. That's your project. Go away and deal with it. Take sole possession of it and go and deal with it. If you need any help with drawings or CAD resources, draft person, let us know. Give us plenty of notice. We'll get that sorted for you." But essentially, that's your project. That's your baby. You've got 3 weeks or you've got 2 months. Give it back to me when it's done. That's all they need. That's all they want to know. And that was fine. That was great, because I had the experience, the ability, and off I went. I would make sure I had a good briefing from them when I started, so that I knew exactly what they were looking for, which I pretty much knew anyway. But you want to hear it. You want to have that discussion for an hour about it, and then off you went. And that worked really well for me, because I didn't need to then get involved in the office politics and all the things that were going on. There would be people say, "Oh, are you back, Andrew? Yeah, just for a few weeks." Oh, great. See you along. Might catch up with you in the canteen for a cup of tea or something like that.
And you're
And
not a threat to anyone because
exactly.
you're only there for a temporary amount of time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the senior people, it was usually the senior people who were struggling with the resources because they didn't have enough people. I won't say minions, that's the wrong way to look at it. They didn't have enough people doing the work, and they would then get stressed out. So if someone could come in and take one big thing off their table, it didn't, as you say, it didn't interrupt their ego, it didn't bash their ego. It was a case of, I can now focus on doing these things and doing these things quite well. Andrew's taken that big project off me. Great, everyone's done. The problem lies when it actually, that person isn't as productive as they should be, and that actually happens several times. That for some of the clients I work for, you find out what goes on around the office just by being there, and you would realize that he was spending 40 minutes in the kitchen making his cup of tea, and he was going into other departments, and you would see him just sort of leaning on a filing cabinet talking to someone about the football or what was on the telly last night. So when the senior people aren't pulling their weight, you can guarantee there's going to be a resourcing problem because they're not pulling their weight. They're not either delegating enough because they don't trust the people they're working with, or they don't have enough people to delegate to, and they have to do the grunt work. Oh, that's ego damaging. I have to do this, but I'm a senior. I've been doing this for 15 years. I shouldn't have to do this menial level. Well, if that's what you need to do, Sunshine, you just need to buckle down and do it, and you do it with a smile. And it's so I didn't have to worry about all of those things. I could come and go as my hours were my own. I would generally put in 40 hours because I didn't want to milk them. I didn't want them to think, oh, he's just going to try and get 50 hours out of us every week. Because if they'd have said, we're really pushed for time, can you put in some more hours? That's a different thing. But I would
Mm.
generally do about my 40 hours. I tended to be an early morning person, so I would be in the office for 8 o'clock in the morning through till about 5:30, unless there was a reason to stay beyond. But you just got on and got on with it, and there was that trust that you would be able to get on and do the project and get on with it. So people with Asperger's have this willingness to want to get knuckle down and get on with something. Great if they're not distracted. I'm a very focused person. Um, when I was at work, I was always very focused, and I hated people coming up to me and interrupting me. And I certainly hate it now when I'm writing. If I'm writing a first draft of a book, yeah, maybe best not to interrupt me too often because I'm just so focused on it because that's my
Absolutely.
task.
I've taken to house sitting because
Yes.
then I can go and stay in a house for a week or 2 weeks at a time and I don't have any interruptions. It's like going away into a log cabin somewhere, but it's just someone's house, usually with an animal of some description.
Yes.
But the only demand on me is the animal saying, "Can I have my breakfast?"
Yeah.
And then I'm done for the day, pretty much, in terms of interruptions.
Yeah.
It's the only way I can function to do that kind of work.
Yeah. But you get a lot done.
Loads done. It's loads done. And I can work for 12, 16 hours straight when I'm in the zone.
Yeah.
Might not be healthy, but really productive, really
Yeah.
on my A game.
Yeah. 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 It's amazing how my Asperger's brain works, and I think yours very focused as well. It's a great talent, and I think it is. It's a superpower. It's because it gives me these abilities to be able to just crack on and get on with it, and I'm not interested in doing this all day, looking down at their phones and what was on the football. And
I think companies are missing a trick because they could expedite some of their projects, which could bring in extra cash for
yeah,
coming in the budget because of man hours or whatever, resources. And you're bound to have more than one person who likes to work in that very focused way.
mm,
So why wouldn't you pull together a team of people who prefer to work in a only this project, nothing else exists way,
Yeah.
instead of we're going to be giving you 12 projects to look after. And you're like, that's 12 plates I've got to spin at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Um, it, I think that they would reap the rewards of sequential instead of concurrent.
Yes. And what's wrong with allowing them to do that at home?
Oh, yeah.
Working from home.
In
So much
control
more
of their own
productive.
environment.
They're in their own environment. They haven't had to drive for an hour or sit on the bus for an hour. So
Absolutely.
they're helping the environment in a roundabout way. They're certainly not putting wear and tear on their car. They're not having the stress of sitting on the M8 coming into Glasgow at Proven at 7:20 in the morning and it's already backed up.
They can
And
control their temperature. They can take
yep,
snacks when they need to, breaks when they need to.
yep,
Um, as long as they keep that communication flowing with when they are available for
yeah,
things,
exactly.
what's the problem? I mean, I
Absolutely.
remember
Yeah,
before the pandemic thing hit, working from home, people would always say, "Oh, you're working from home," in
yeah,
inverted commas, as
yes,
if that's a euphemism for taking a day off. You
yes,
know, um, and you had to have a really good reason to take a working from home day,
yeah,
really good,
yeah,
and like beg for it. And you're like, but actually, what you don't realize is I'm more productive when I work from home. You get more bang for your buck from me
yeah,
because there isn't constant interruptions like there are in the open plan office.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's if the last 2 years has taught us anything, is that the vast majority of people, when given the right support to do their work at home, will be so much more productive and happier and less stressed. And they can work it so that they can finish on Friday at 2 o'clock and they don't have to worry about clock watching and all
Oh, I
that.
can't wait for the death of bums on seats.
Yes.
The whole everyone starts at 9 or these are the core hours
Oh, yeah.
and all this sort of stuff. You know, when you get neurodivergent people in the office, often you'll get somebody who is getting their first wind at 10 p.m., never mind their second wind, and they are happy to work through the evening and they're going to bed at 5 or 6 in the morning because they're night people. That's
Yeah.
when they're, really hot. So why would you force that night person to have 3 hours sleep and then force themselves into an office
Yeah.
to like groggily stare into their coffee to try and function during the day with all the noise? And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't
Exactly.
even make any sense.
No,
Why would you wouldn't do that to somebody? But they
no.
do all the time.
Yeah. It, it's crazy. It's crazy. I was reading a post about um, when the pandemic hit and everyone got put onto working from home. This one particular company were dead against it, but they got forced into it. And as soon as it was possible, this boss who was micromanaging everyone and doing all of this stuff with them says, right, we're coming straight back. We're going straight back into the office. Everyone's in Monday morning, back to the office, bang. We're going to crack it out. We're going to knuckle down and we're going to work. Guess who didn't show up for work on that Monday morning? Because she was
Who?
working from home. All it meant was most of the team said, not going to do this. And they all started looking for jobs. Within a
Yeah.
few weeks, half of the team had left.
You can't walk the walk and talk the talk.
Exactly.
Get it?
Yeah. She didn't like people working from home because she didn't get as much done working from home. So therefore, everyone else couldn't possibly get as much done
And
working from home.
that's it. Judging others by their own limitations.
Yeah. You know,
And I think a lot of people do that. It's like people who are polymaths who are really good at more than one thing. People who believe, they really believe you can only be good at one thing, like a pianist or a boxer. You can't do multiple things. Where there's, been people all through the centuries demonstrating you can be good at multiple things. It's all about how focused you are, how applied you are, how
yeah.
interested you are,
Yeah.
etc., etc. And there are lots of polymaths out there, which is what they're called. Um, Only people who think that you can only do one thing at a time will call polymaths generalists and jack of all trades, which diminishes the fact
Yes.
that they are specialists in multiple areas.
Yeah.
And that's that whole judging everybody by your own limitations thing.
Mm,
And people do it
mm,
all the time.
mm.
So frustrating.
It is.
Don't judge me by your own limitations. Thank you.
Yep.
Blimey, blimey. But the integrity and loyalty thing, a lot of companies say that's what they want in employees, but they don't create an environment that fosters
Yes.
integrity and loyalty. And then they get really confused about why people are leaving,
Mm.
because they were sold integrity, honesty, and loyalty.
Yeah.
But when they get there, they realize they don't want you to be honest, not that honest. You know, they don't want you to point things out. um, or be honest with the customer, despite the fact you've taken all that time to build a relationship with the
Yes.
customer who trusts you.
Yes.
And they don't want you to speak up if somebody like takes your idea and presents it in a meeting, and you're in the meeting, and they're going, "I've had an idea," and they go, "La la la," and you go, "I told you that yesterday." But if you do that, you're the troublemaker.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It's crazy that there are so many ways to get things right with all people from all backgrounds, not just neurodivergent and neurotypical as well. But equally, there are so many people, so many ways to get it wrong, and they tend to be, as we said earlier, as you said earlier, about insecure people, insecure managers whose egos are hanging by a thread and are paper thin, and they just can't cope with someone else having a better idea or be seen to be in the limelight. It's threatening them. Whereas what you should, it's the manager's job to make sure that everyone is productive in the way that works best for them. And if that means you need to do it differently for person 1 to person 2 to person 3, then so be it. Don't try and squeeze everyone into a square peg, when round holes and square pegs and things. I've been that peg, and I've had too many people trying to knock too many edges off me over the years.
Absolutely. Got the bruises to
Yeah,
show.
got the bruises, got psychological scars as well. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool.
Super. Thank you very much for coming on, Sam. It's always good to have you on. It's always very lively having you on rather than just me prattling on.
Well, you see, I have to use a bit of self-discipline, because quite often I want to leap in and go, I've got a story that goes with that. And I'm like, no, let him talk. Let him say stuff. It's not the Sam show.
That's quite all right. I don't mind, honest. It's been good to see you. It's good to see you. So I'm going to wrap up shortly, but for anyone who's watching this on video on my YouTube channel, if you want to know any more about the key strengths of people with Asperger's syndrome or autism, then please feel free to get in touch. I've got my website behind me there, aspergersmatters.com, or you can get me on my email, which is andrew@aspergersmatters.com. Or if you want to hear from Sam, how can they get in contact with you?
Oh, well, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm imaginatively called Sam Warner on LinkedIn, but you'll see the autistic interpreter there as well, just, because there's lots of men called Sam Warner. But also my website, which is Get Your Message Across, but with hyphens. So get-your-message-across.com. It's a bit of a mouthful, but yeah, you can have a peruse of that if you like.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for coming on today, Kat. I'm going to turn off the recording and say I'll see you next week. And look out for my Friday afternoon post, which will be the event for next week, when I will be posting what the topic is, and I haven't thought of it yet. So that'll be my challenge for the next day or so, is to put that up. And don't forget, you can watch a replay of all of the videos on these sessions on my YouTube channel. So thanks very much for being